MeMonster.
Chapter 0. Kim Soo-ho, 17 to 27 years old in the story. A righteous, honest man and a hard worker. Though he comes from a common background, he is of extraordinary character and talent. As a genius who made his name known in the military academy, he possesses a sense of justice and other upright qualities befitting a hero. He carries a special secret that he hasn't revealed to anyone. Shin Jong-hak, 17 to 27 years old in the story. The fourth-generation descendant of Jinsang Corp, one of the greatest chaebol in Korea, contending for the #1 spot. As a child of a chaebol family, he is a narcissist and an elitist. Because of his personality and the sense of inferiority he feels toward Kim Soo-ho, he later becomes a villain. I have to be the best. I cannot tolerate anyone being above me. With such obstinacy, he confronts Kim Soo-ho. These two were the main characters of my novel. Why was I saying all this? Heroes Association's Agent Military Academy, Seoul Branch Graduation, Class of 2024, Rank 1 Cadet, Kim Soo-ho. It was because the story in my novel was happening right before my eyes. Called up to the stage, Kim Soo-ho walked up with a stiff face, as though he was nervous. We were in a huge auditorium that resembled a temple. Inside were 3,000 cadets and thousands of spectators. All their gazes turned to one person, Kim Soo-ho. "He's Kim Soo-ho? Wow, he's so handsome!" Several women watched with admiration and adoration. This is why people say gift is all that matters. Who cares if you try hard? People like him end up taking first place anyway. That guy completely lucked out with his gift. Naturally, he received the jealousy and envy of young teenagers. His grades are said to be the best in the past 10 years. Yeah, I've heard of him. His gift was announced too, right? What was it again? Sword Saint. Guild associates who came to watch the best cadet in recent history watched with keen eyes. They were sitting in the highest seats of the auditorium. However, I could hear their voices. They had to be at least a kilometer away, but as long as I looked their way, I could hear their words clearly. Not only their words, but I could also see their faces, almost as if I was right in front of them. Perhaps this was my gift. Yes, in regards to swords, he is said to receive the world's protection. That's a pretty vague description, but I guess the information from the academy is always like that. We call dibs on that kid, so don't touch him. I recognized one of the whispering faces, Yoon Sung-ha, an important assistant to the main character and one of the heroines who almost became the main character's lover. Just when the two of them were getting close, in reality, when the main character was getting close to many of the heroines, I suspended my novel. Thus, the two of them never became lovers. Dibs? What dibs? When it comes to cadets, there's no such thing. At another guild associate's calloused words, Yoon Sung-ha smiled sweetly and replied, "Is that why Essence of the Straight can't escape second place?" I knew Yoon Sung-ha's face. Surprisingly, she looked like my first love from college. That was probably because I thought of her when I described Yoon Sung-ha's character, though she was my crush, to be exact. Can I take that as a challenge? I'm kidding, of course, and plus we still have 3 years to go before we can scout any of them. It's 2 years. You know, contacting them before they graduate is illegal, right? That's only if you're found out. Yoon Sung-ha and the man glared at each other. With their staring contest as the starting point, the VIP seat's atmosphere began to heat up. And so, the fight for Kim Soo-ho had already begun. Class of 2024, Rank 2 Cadet, Shin Jong-hak. Meanwhile, the other main character stood up. He was the descendant of Jinsang clan. His appearance rivaled Kim Soo-ho's as well. The audience stirred just like when Kim Soo-ho walked up. But like with Kim Soo-ho, there was no envy or jealousy. There was only admiration and adoration. With Kim Soo-ho, they thought, why is he better than me? But with Shin Jong-hak, they thought, he was better than me from birth. As if to show off his noble blood, Shin Jong-hak walked up to the stage completely composed. Kim Soo-ho and Shin Jong-hak. Standing side by side, they glared at each other. Electricity seemed to crackle between their eyes. Without a doubt, these two were characters from my novel. Then where was I? I wasn't on the stage, but in the farthest back seat of the auditorium. I wasn't one out of 3,000, but a member of the 3,000. No guild associate looked my way. "Chundong, what rank are you?" "I'm rank 2,900. Next to me, a boy resembling a piglet asked. On his name tag were the characters Kim Ho Sup. This meant that he had an eventual role. Though he couldn't be a hero because of his non-existent physical abilities, his gift was outstanding for information gathering. Chundong-chan? I don't know. I didn't know. Who was I? I didn't even know why my name was Chundong. If something like this had to happen, shouldn't I be one of the two on the stage? Hey, come on, if you don't know that, I don't know. Once again, I didn't know. This world was the novel I wrote, but I was in the body of a character I had never written before. Other than being a cadet in the Agent Military Academy, I was the most ordinary and the most connectionless character, the type whose name wouldn't exist anywhere in the novel. In other words, I was an extra. No, I was a speck of dust. Chapter 1. One day, I received an email. The sender asked if he could remake my novel. At the time, I was dumbfounded. I might have been on a short hiatus, but to ask to remake a novel that was in paid serialization? Of course, I refused. In fact, I didn't even reply. Part of it was because doing something like that without permission would go against copyright laws, but it was also because I was ashamed of my hiatus status. The novel I was writing on Read Novel Full was called The Returnee Hero. It wasn't a sensation, but it was fairly popular and the biggest hit in my 5 years of writing. But at the time I received the email, I had been on hiatus for 3 months. The reason was simple. The words just wouldn't come to me. At first, I poured my passion into writing. My personal notes on the world's setting neared 50,000 characters, and I put my heart into every chapter. Note, 50,000 Korean characters is about 10,000 English words. Even so, the novel continued for 6 months, reaching the mid-late stage of the story. But because I forced myself to keep writing, the story was full of plot holes and the characters' personalities fell apart. Unsurprisingly, the number of readers dropped every day. I was too scared to even read the comments. In the end, I chose to go on hiatus. But no matter how long I rested, I couldn't continue the story. Not even a single sentence came out. When I was wallowing in misery, realizing my lack of writing skill, I received another email asking to remake my novel. ebbnm@gmail.com. Please, this is for personal satisfaction. I will not reveal the remake version of the novel anywhere. It will only stay between you and me. Who knows? Maybe you'll be inspired by the remake and come up with a way to continue the story. It was a fairly long email, 6 sentences in total, but the request was simple. He wanted to remake my novel for his own satisfaction. How much did he like my novel to send an email like this? Since I wasn't particularly proud of my work, I agreed, feeling both thankful and ashamed. In that case, was that the cause of this situation? The chance of winning the lottery is said to be 1 in 8,145,060. What was happening to me now had to be a 1 in 7 billion chance. I was standing in an ordinary family home. But the world I was in wasn't my world, and I wasn't me. Though it might sound philosophical, I really wasn't being philosophical. It was just the best way to describe my situation. I had become an extra in my own novel. An extra I had no memory of writing about. Kim Chun-dung. Chun-dung lived in an ordinary apartment, but he didn't have parents. As for why, I of course didn't know. At 9 years old, Chun-dung was admitted to the Agent Military Academy, a place to nurture elites to fight monsters and jinns. What ability did Chun-dung have to pass the entrance exam? I didn't know. I didn't know anything about him. I didn't even know his face. I'm not kidding, I really didn't. When I looked in the mirror, an oval with a question mark, that's what I saw. This crazy body possession or transmigration was completely unreasonable. I had gone to bed like any other day, but when I woke up, I found myself on the last day of the semester at Agent Military Academy. At first, I had two suspicions. First, that I was being pranked. But that idea was shot down in 5 seconds. I couldn't even be bothered to explain why. Second, that I was dreaming. But I dismissed that idea too. As everyone knows, people in dreams don't realize they're dreaming. And more importantly, no dream lasts 2 weeks with such a clear sense of reality. As a result, I spent the past 2 weeks pondering whether the world inside the novel should be treated as the reality I was in. Ding dong. Tat 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 tat. Just like I'd been doing for the last 2 weeks, I was lying in bed staring blankly at the ceiling when my smartphone alarm rang. Glancing over, I saw it was time to go to school. Why the hell do I need to go to school? 13 days ago, it was Agent Military Academy's graduation, but only non-combatant cadets graduated, and they couldn't be called heroes. Combat class cadets had to attend the academy for 3 more years. These 3 years would be spent at Cube, a hero academy. Unfortunately, this damned Chun-dung guy was a combat-type cadet. Again, I had no clue who he was. How frustrating. I had barely done anything for 2 weeks. I spent most of my time on the internet, ate when I was hungry, went back online to search for a way out, laughed at the surprisingly funny variety shows on TV, ate again when I got hungry. Anyway, the only noteworthy event was going to Seoul 2 days ago for the 3-hour-long Cube entrance ceremony. I didn't want to go, but I had no choice since I was told I'd be expelled if I didn't attend. I do think I need to go, but I couldn't figure out who dropped me here, for what reason, or with what power. But after living idly for 2 weeks, I reluctantly accepted my fate. It seemed I would live this way for a long time. In that case, I at least need to make a living for myself. In my novel, being a hero was anyone's dream job. Though things got serious midway through because of villains, the hiatus wasn't long after that. I just had to survive until then. When the time came, I'm sure I'd figure something out. 7:33 a.m. There were only 57 minutes until school. I got up and trudged to the bathroom. Standing in front of the mirror, Mr. Question Mark greeted me. Screw this question mark. Is it ever going to go away? No joke, my face is a question mark. I didn't know why. It wasn't because I didn't describe my face. If that were the case, it wouldn't make sense for the other billions of people to have their own faces. So why was only Chun-dung's face a question mark? I don't get it. Muttering begrudgingly, I washed my face. I could feel my skin. I had hair too. That made things even creepier. After cleaning up, I changed into Cube's uniform that I got at the entrance ceremony. Other than that, I had no other baggage. People who saw me in this uniform would undoubtedly look enviously at me. But I didn't know what I was doing. My face was a freaking question mark. How was I supposed to figure anything out? Turning the doorknob, I glanced back. My home for the past 2 weeks. The apartment I barely found thanks to the address on my cadet card. It seemed I had gotten attached to it in this short time. I felt like I would miss it. Leaving behind the apartment I'd grown fond of, I stepped into the dark and unfamiliar world. Chapter 2: The World's Greatest Training Institute, boasting state-of-the-art magic, science, and engineering. Cube. Cube was the name of a huge island located in the East Sea. This artificial island was twice the size of Yoido. Note: Yoido is a large island in Seoul, 8.4 square kilometers in size, and home to 31,000 people. In this vast area, there were only about 5,000 hero cadets, of which 1,300 were first years. While 2,000 non-combatants graduated 2 weeks ago, elite cadets from all over the world gathered there, making it more competitive than before. In a way, the place was too harsh and dreary to be home for 17 to 19-year-olds. Starting from the second year, magicians who chose to become heroes would come from the National Magic University, adding another 200 to 300 cadets. Furthermore, there were training instructors, cafeteria ladies, cleaners, recruiters who visited occasionally, government associates, engineers for maintenance and operations, soldiers dispatched as security, doctors and researchers to care for cadets, convenience store workers under Cube, and more. With all these people, about 50,000 people resided in Cube. Naturally, this place was a highly important hub where investors' attention gathered. Given that my novel's setting was faithfully followed, Korea was a world power rivaling the United States. I seem to remember listing several reasons for it, but the more obvious reason was that I was Korean. In any case, Chundong was a member of Cube, so he could be considered an elite. But I didn't allocate any story for Chundong, so Chundong's destiny should have been to live in areas detached from the main storyline. While he would not have lived the important and burdening life of the main character, he probably would have lived a comfortable, worry-free life. Staring at the door to the classroom, I sighed. Note: Novice / Veritas. Novice referred to first-year cadets, while Veritas was the name of the class. Simply put, I was in Year 1, Class 1. I knew what this class was. Shin Jong-hak and Kim Soo-ho were in this class, and as cliques formed around them, many schemes, mostly started by Shin Jong-hak and his followers, would make the class rowdy. As a member of the class, I would most likely be swept in regardless of my will. After collecting my breath, I slowly and carefully opened the door. The interior was sleek, white, with no sign of dust, and 3 long desks cascading up. Where should I sit? I looked around the classroom and found Shin Jong-hak sitting at the farthest seat back. With his eyes closed and his hands in his pockets, he seemed imposing. Next to him was his childhood friend, Yu Yanha, chattering. The two of them didn't pay any attention to me. Thank God. I sat down at the edge seat of the middle row. Like a proper extra, I looked straight ahead in a daze. There was no chalkboard but a projection screen for holograms to be shown. Looking at it, I couldn't help but sigh. After going through high school and even mandatory military service, I couldn't believe I had to go back to school. There couldn't be a worse calamity. Awam. Cube semester began in February. The outside was cold, and the inside being warm naturally made me sleepy. Currently, it's 8 a.m. Class begins at 8:30 a.m. In truth, I didn't expect to arrive this early. Going from Seoul to Cube was quick using the portal, but I expected to get lost once I got here. However, there was something called the Cube bus, a bus that ran every 10 minutes around Cube that didn't exist in my original setting. Thinking about it now, it was a mistake on my part to have the main character walk around the huge campus all the time. Since the novel became a real world, it seemed it was fixing plot holes on its own. Anyway, let's sleep a little. I don't want to think anymore. Closing my eyes, I dropped my head on the desk. Now! A thunderous shout awoken me. When I opened my eyes, the instructor was behind the podium. Today is the first day, so there won't be any special training, but I hope you all did your morning training. Training is never wrong, especially in the morning when mana density is high.
Morning training? Oh, right. There was something like that. A training ground that opened from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. I had hurriedly stuffed it into the story to give the leading characters an opportunity to meet. Now, let's start with self-introductions. I'm Kim Soo-hik, the instructor in charge of you all for the year. That name, I could vaguely recall it. My ranking point is 3850. World rank 9,737. By the association's classification, I would be high intermediate rank, grade 5. The students' eyes lit up. It was understandable. There were around 2 million heroes in the world. Rank 9,737 meant he was very skilled. I think that's enough for my introduction. Kim Soo-hik seemed to like the students' reactions as the corners of his mouth curled up into a grin. The first day will feel special. You might not have slept due to excitement and worry, or maybe you're feeling great about being able to improve yourselves. Maybe you're happy to see your crushes again. The cadets broke out into small laughter, but the instructor froze his expression sternly. But Cube is not the same as it was before. I promise you, there will be no time for relationships. In Cube, you will experience several real combat situations. Look forward to experiencing how fearful the real world is. His roguish smile sent a chill down my back. Combat training. I had to take part in that too. Next, Cube is objective. The only indicator of your success will be your grade. Guilds will only look at your grade. Thus, we will grade you accurately and strictly. If you underperform, you will be held back. Statistically, less than half of Cube's cadets graduate without repeating a semester. Even then, you can only be held back up to 2 years. Any more than that, you will be expelled. If you can't become a hero, you will become an agent or a mercenary. I take it that that's not what you want. After giving the students a scare, the instructor paused and scanned the students' faces. I can already see a few familiar faces. It was the same for me. Kim Soo-ho, Shin Jong-hak, Yu Yun-ha, Chae Na-yun, Rachel, and Yi Young-han. These 6 were the important characters I could see at a glance. Shin Jong-hak sat with Yu Yun-ha. Since Kim Soo-ho and Chae Na-yun saw each other as rivals, they were distant. Princess Rachel sat alone, and Yi Young-han sat behind Kim Soo-ho. I repeat, at Cube, you will need to confirm the things you've learned until now and hone your skills to be used in battle. There will be no kind training here. Remember that. With that, Kim Soo-hik announced, "Now, get ready. What's scheduled for today won't take long. The first task is main weapon selection. Any weapon you can think of should be here." A main weapon was exactly what it sounded like. High-ranking heroes called their weapons treasured weapons, while weapons above unique grade were given the title of armament. But I didn't know what my main weapon was. I knew nothing about Chundung's past. Stand in front of the weapon you want. We'll supply you with the training weapons. But don't look down on them just because they're training weapons. Their market price is 5 million won. There were all sorts of weapons, more than I could have ever imagined. Sword, spear, saber, dagger, rapier, halberd, greatsword, zweihander, bow, gun, whip, gauntlet, etc. The 100 students of Veritas class stood in front of the weapon they wanted. Choose carefully. Once you pick your main weapon, you won't be able to change it for at least 6 months. Sword and spear were obviously the most popular choices. Kim Soo-ho and Shin Jong-hak stood in front of a sword and a spear, respectively. 70 out of 100 chose the sword, spear, or saber, the so-called holy trinity of weapons. On the other hand, Yu Yan-ha chose the whip, Chae Na-yun chose the bow, and Rachel chose the rapier. However, I simply stood in a daze. "Kim Chundung, why are you standing still?" Kim Soo-yuk asked. I stared blankly at the one weapon no one gave a glance, the weapon of choice in the modern world, one that didn't require an instruction manual, and one that anyone could use with a click. But in this world, this weapon was the weakest lump of metal, a weapon avoided by every hero. Most likely, it was only here for the sake of having all kinds of weapons present. But this was the only choice I had. I couldn't use any close-ranged weapons.
Even if Chundun was talented in one, I didn't want to participate in close-ranged combat where blood splattered everywhere. Kim Chundung. The instructor's voice fell low, and other students' eyes fell on me. Shinjong Hak and Kim Soo-ho were among them. I didn't like being the center of attention. I quickly walked up and grabbed the weapon. I could feel the weight of the metal in my hand as the smell of rust tickled my nose. More eyes fell on me. The weapon in my hand was a handgun.
Chapter 3. Guns were still excellent weapons in this world, but only for ordinary soldiers who couldn't wield mana. Instead of traditional bullets, guns here used magic bullets, bullets filled with compressed mana, strong enough to kill low-intermediate rank 8 monsters. In comparison, the training saber, which cost 5 million won, could only kill low-rank monsters on average, so the gun was a stronger weapon on its own. However, heroes and mercenaries who could wield magic power didn't choose guns. That was because magic power couldn't be applied to guns, so no matter how strong the user was, the weapon had a clear limit in potency. When choosing a main weapon, the most important aspect was its origin. In short, a weapon's grade increased the grander its origin was. For example, guns were separated into 3 grades: mass-produced, custom-made, or masterpiece. Swords, on the other hand, had many more: artifact, armament, treasured, mythical, legendary, and so on. This was because myths and legends were real in this world. The sword was a weapon with a long and deep history. Naturally, many swords had descended from myths and legends. Sword of Freyr, Demon Blade Muramasa, Magic Sword Turfing, Holy Sword Durandal, King's Sword Excalibur, etc. In this world, many legendary swords remain undiscovered in dungeons or towers. Each was a priceless treasure. Of course, these treasures could only be used by those proficient with swords. Consequently, heroes chose more ancient weapons. Even if they reached a bottleneck in their growth, a high-grade weapon could help them break through. Kim Soo-hyuk called my name once more before activating his smartwatch. For some reason, I could also see the information hidden by the information protection system. It was information about me, Cadet Kim Chundong. Didn't you use a sword? As expected of an extra, Kim Chundong was an ordinary swordsman. I decided to change my weapon. After coming all the way to Cube? Yes. Kim Soo-hyuk didn't look happy with my choice, but he nodded with a slight frown. That's fine. Cadets can make their own choices at Cube. Instructors won't interfere at all. But that also means the responsibility falls on cadets. Kim Soo-hyuk moved on, but the whispering among students didn't stop. Whispers that should have been too quiet for me to hear. For some reason, I could hear them clearly. It seems this was Chundong's gift. How useless. Gun? Is that guy insane? Why did he even come to Cube if he wants to be a mercenary? Before entering Cube, cadets got to try all sorts of weapons. It was to find the weapon that suited their gift. But a gift didn't need to be used to use guns. You just had to put your finger on the trigger and pull. You can easily change the main weapon you chose today, and regardless of what you chose, you will go through the same training and tests. That means the weaknesses of a weapon will be yours to handle. Kim Soo-hyuk announced while looking my way. I get it, damn it. I just didn't have any other choice. The cadets here had been attending military academies since they were 7 or 8 years old. In other words, they had been practicing cutting, slicing, breaking, and shooting for 10 years. But I was different. I didn't inherit Chundong's memories, and I was far from a swordsman in the real world. Heck, I wasn't even into sports. I wasn't much of a thrill seeker either. In the end, I could only choose a long-range weapon, so a bow or a gun. Thanks to Korea's military service, I was at least familiar with guns. Now, we'll assign you your rooms, and your personal belongings will be sent there. Afterward, you're free. Classes will start 4 days later. That's next Monday. Kim Soo-hyuk spoke as he looked my way with pity. And thus the main weapon selection ended. Yo, Gunner, are you for real? I just don't understand. Are you one of those attention seekers? This is the first time I've heard of someone choosing a gun at Cube. On the way to the dorm, a group of guys struck up a conversation. I simply ignored their sarcastic remarks. Seeing me unperturbed by their provocations, the group left after snickering to themselves. As expected for teenage boys, they were more interested in female students. Even I turned my sights their way. Chae Na-yoon, Rachel, and Yoo Yeon-hae. These three girls' beauty had far surpassed my settings. While I observed them with a side glance, we arrived at the dorm. Here are the dorms for the first years. 6 extravagant skyscrapers stood in front of me. According to Kim Soo-hyuk, each building had 100 floors, each consisting of 5 rooms. The rooms were distributed according to grades, but even if one's grades were at the very bottom, they still got their own room. Agent Military Academy's top 3 male and top 3 female cadets got the penthouses. Kim Soo-ho was the only one who gave up on it, saying it was too big for him to use. Guys are to the right, girls are to the left. The key to your rooms will be stored in the smartwatches you'll get now. As Kim Soo-hyuk explained, other first-year classes arrived. If I remember correctly, the first-year classes were variety, acceptance, intelligence, wisdom, cultivation, honor, virtue, friendship, potential, and world. A total of 10 classes. Should I try looking for other major characters? Some of them should be antagonists. Chundong. Kim Chundong. Huh? Me? Why? Why? Kim Soo-hyuk was calling me. I was just distracted for a moment, but Kim Soo-hyuk's eyes narrowed like a hawk. His fierce gaze made me freeze. Seemingly disappointed by my reaction, Kim Soo-hyuk closed his eyes and sighed. Your smartwatch. Come to take it. Ah, yes. I almost fell over from my legs shaking. I could hear other students laughing behind me. You dare laugh at your creator? I got angry for a moment, but I generously chose to forgive them. Since I didn't have a way to get back at them, I didn't have any other choice. The room assigned to me was bigger than Chundong's apartment and came with a couch, bed, rice cooker, TV, computer, and even magic tools. I still can't get used to it. Slouching down on the comfy couch, I pondered. The weight of the handgun in my hand didn't feel real. Thinking about it now, it might have been better to leave Cube if I was going to choose a gun. Having been a cadet at the Agent Military Academy should have been enough to let me live without starving. But my problem didn't end there. Why was I sent to this world, and how could I go back? To find out, I had the feeling I needed to stay close to the main storyline. Though I doubt I could get too close with just a gun. Should I try shooting it to see its power? I thought of something good. Jumping up from the couch, I aimed at the wall and closed my left eye. Just when I was about to pull the trigger, ding dong, the bell rang. An electronic voice rang out beyond the door. Rank 934, Kim Chun-dong. Take your luggage. It was a robot. Throwing the gun on the couch, I opened the door and saw a fairly big box on the ground.
It seemed Chun-dong sent his belongings beforehand. I picked up the box and brought it in. Agent Military Academy rank 1543, Hero Military Academy rank 934, Kim Chun-dong, personal belonging. Rank 934? Wasn't that too average? With a smirk, I pulled off the tape. Huh? There was only a single item in the big box, but I knew what it was. This wasn't Chun-dong's, but mine. This was from my previous life, though it felt a bit weird to call it a previous life. Anyway, this was the laptop I had used on Earth to write my novel.
Chapter 4. 8 students gathered in a large room on the top floor of Dorm 1. They sat in arrogant, delinquent-like poses, laughing loudly at even the smallest things. Occasionally, they cast furtive glances at the one who had called them together, but that person remained silent, as if he didn't care at all. "All right, Jonghak, isn't there a gun user in your class?" one man asked. He was a generically handsome guy with a friendly smile. Shin Jonghak narrowed his eyes and stared back at him. "Yum, I just heard it somewhere. Did I hear wrong?" "I don't know. I'm not interested in trash." Right. I'm not really interested either, but I was just curious who the fool was." "Hanjan, you sure are curious about the strangest things," a captivating voice cut in. Jin Han-jun turned his head and saw a long-haired girl smiling charmingly. It was Yu Yen-ha. Flustered, John Han-jun blurted out, "Oh, Yen-ha! Yeah, I was always like that." "But he sure was pathetic. Why did that guy come all the way to Cube just to choose a gun?" The foul language came from Kim Horok. With his bulky muscles, intimidating expression, and large physique, it was clear he specialized in close combat. Jin Han-jun asked Kim Horok, "You know him?" "I'm in Jonghak's class, idiot. I'm going to destroy him in combat training. I'll disable him and chase him out." Everyone knew Cube's schedule. There were classes 5 days a week and combat training 3 days a week. Classes included comprehensive magic power training and physical training, while combat training involved battles, monster hunts, and rescue missions, and more. "I'll destroy that guy. Don't waste your time." With a single sentence, Shin Jonghak cut off the crude talk. Kim Horok, who had been growling, fell silent. "Even if you win against someone so low-ranked, you'll be the one losing points. It's better to challenge higher-ranked cadets you can actually beat. For example, Chae Na-yoon. Try fighting her. I'm sure you'll win." Yu Yen-ha interjected. Shin Jonghak narrowed his eyes and glared at her, but Yu Yen-ha continued unfazed. "Fist against bow. It's easy." "Huh? Yeah, I can win, but..." Challenging her was difficult. Still, he swallowed his words, wanting to look good in front of Yu Yen-ha. "But? It would be too pitiful. My opponents often end up half dead." "There's nothing wrong with that." "Huh? Stop." Shin Jonghak ended the conversation. Though Yu Yen-ha was displeased, she pretended not to care. She quietly suppressed the unpleasant feeling rising inside her. Shin Jonghak liked Chae Na-yoon. "I'm not so stupid as to be jealous. I just found the situation funny," Yu Yen-ha told herself. "I'm leaving now. It's almost 10. At Cube, male and female students could only interact until 2200. Hiding her hurt feelings behind a bright smile, Yu Yen-ha stood up. "Oh, good night." "Good night, Yen-ha. See you later." All the male cadets except Shin Jonghak saw her off at the door. 5 minutes from Dorm 1 was a training facility called the Novice Fitness Center. This 1,000 square meter facility was filled with magical devices and training equipment. Building such a place would cost over 100 million won, but hardly anyone was using it. But just because the facility was empty didn't mean the future of heroes was bleak. Cadets were would-be heroes, admired and envied by billions, but they were still teenagers. Simply put, not many high schoolers wanted to train on the first day. But I knew you'd be here. But there was always an exception. Even at Hero Academy, there was someone who enjoyed training from the day one. Kim Soo-ho, drenched in sweat and wrestling with exercise equipment, widened his eyes at the sudden voice. "Chae Na-yoon, you're here to train too?" "Yeah, but I won't be as barbaric as you." With a wry smile, Chae Na-yoon pointed at the gravitation room. Seeing the intimidating cylindrical room, Kim Soo-ho frowned. "That's a tough one. I could never last long in there." Kim Soo-ho wiped his sweat with a towel. "It's not that you can't, you just don't need to. I'm an archer, so I have to train in there.
Plus, it's not that hard. I've been doing it since I was 8.
8 years old?
Yep, I have one at home.
Setting up a gravitation room costs at least several hundred million won. From what Chae Na-yoon said, it was clear she came from a wealthy family. Like Shin Jong-hak, Chae Na-yoon was a fourth-generation chaebol. But instead of a twisted superiority complex, she had a righteous sense of rivalry. She believed she could surpass her rivals through hard work and self-improvement. But in front of the monster standing before her, her belief always seemed to waver. "Oh right, there's another sharpshooter in our class now." Kim Soo-ho mentioned it, and Chae Na-yoon tilted her head curiously. "Sharpshooter? Oh, that Chudong or whatever guy?" Yeah, him. What's that look? Do you not like him?" As Kim Soo-ho pointed out, Chae Na-yoon's face stiffened. "He's not a sharpshooter. Guns can only shoot up to 1 kilometer at best. I still don't get why that Dongchu guy picked a gun." His name had changed from Chudong to Dongchu, but Kim Soo-ho didn't bother correcting her. "I think he gave up. Maybe there was trouble at home or something. Since being a cube cadet won't stay on your record if you leave early, he's probably just staying for a while." "Gave up? Don't say something like that so easily. Who are you to tell me what I can and can't say?" For a moment, anger flashed in Chae Na-yoon's eyes. Kim Soo-ho's lecturing tone didn't sit well with her, since she saw him as a rival. Sorry. Anyway, if you don't want to lose, keep working hard. I'm going." "Yeah, see you later." "Please, I'm right next door." Chae Na-yoon smirked and went into the gravitation room. The gravitation room multiplied gravity by a certain factor, increasing the pressure on one's bloodstream. Training in this cylindrical room required operating magic power under heavy gravity, making it one of the most painful training methods. For Kim Soo-ho, just looking at the room made him shudder. Seeing Chae Na-yoon walk in without hesitation, he could only shake his head. Inside Kim Chin-dong's room, I held my breath as I stared at the laptop screen. I still couldn't understand what I was seeing. I could see it, but my brain refused to process it. It just seemed too absurd. "What is this?" After a long silence, I blurted out with a trembling voice. "Synchronizing. 70% complete. 1. Kim Chin-dong. Current SP 54. Stats. Variable stats. Strength 4. Stamina 4.3. Speed 4. Perception 5. Vitality 4. Magic power 3.5. Invariable stats. Intelligence 4 out of 10. Perseverance 4. Luck 4. Charm 4. Gift, arts, supplement, setting chart. Synchronizing 70% complete. What is this? This window on the monitor, this format, I recognize it. It's the format of my settings book, but I had never written or even thought of a setting like this. This incomprehensible phenomenon made me sweat. My hands and feet trembled, and my heart began to pound.
This strange object, just who sent it to me, for what purpose, and for what reason? At that moment, the laptop screen turned off. From the black screen, a face was reflected. It wasn't Kim Chin-dong's, but my face, Kim Hajin's face. Before I could even be shocked, the laptop turned back on and words began to appear on the screen. Kim Chin-dong, synchronization with Kim Hajin complete. All status reset. Unique authority, setting intervention acquired.
Chapter 5. In this world, there was a phenomenon called enlightenment. Often considered the first qualification to becoming a hero, enlightenment was a form of personal insight that occurred when someone surpassed their limits. All active-duty heroes were enlightened. However, since reaching enlightenment required many experiences and training, most cadets had yet to experience it. Of course, there were exceptions like Kim Soo-ho and Shin Jong-hak. They became enlightened at the ages of 15 and 17, respectively. An enlightened person could see their gift, skills, and abilities objectively, allowing them to train more efficiently. Furthermore, enlightenment enabled one to acquire clear rewards from towers and dungeons. The Hero Association called this phenomenon the status window. It was an established fact that a status window could only be seen by its owner. But because I liked exceptions, I added some to this setting. Instead of just one's eyes, other sensory organs or mediums, like a book or a weapon, could be used to see one's own status. Special enlightenment naturally came with special powers. Though it was a bit of a spoiler, the main character would undergo 2 enlightenments because of this setting. Is this that? According to my setting, this laptop could be considered a medium for enlightenment. I started to feel a bit excited. No one hated being special. When I hit the Enter key on the keyboard, several windows popped up. Synchronization complete. Kim Chundong's status reset. Kim Hajin's status transferred. All status reset. 10 points acquired. Kim Hajin. Current SP 64. Stats. Variable stats. Strength 1.2. Stamina 1.3. Speed 1.5. Perception 2. Vitality 1.3. Magic power 1. Invariable stats. Intelligence 4.105 out of 10. Perseverance 5.010 out of 10. Luck 6.330 out of 10. Charm 4.135 out of 10. Point 10. Will disappear in 10 days if not used. Gift. Observation and reading. Null attribute. Observation. You can observe the characters in your vision. Reading. Anytime you want, you can read the laptop's settings book without a medium. Arts. 0 out of 3. Physique. 0 out of 3. Setting intervention. Authority. Using SP, you can modify or add settings to a non-living target. Using SP and relating to target Kim Hajin, you can modify or add settings to status, gift, art, and physique. Novice consideration. Once only, you can write a gift worth 10,000 SP free of cost. SP. Story point. As Kim Hajin's importance increases in the world, you gain more SP. You can exchange points with SP. Mysterious. Will be unlocked when the main story completes. The first words that catch my attention were synchronization and reset. I didn't know exactly what they meant, but I knew they changed my name from Kim Chundong to Kim Hajin and gave me my face back. My status also seemed to have been adjusted appropriately. Compared to Chundong, I was much weaker, but I obtained 10 spare points as compensation. With points, I should be able to raise the stats I wanted. Points are really nice. As the world's creator, I knew how important points were. An average adult had 1.5 points in each stat. Furthermore, this world didn't have a concept like leveling up, so points, which could raise one's desired stats, were extremely rare and expensive, obtainable only from towers and dungeons. Kim Suho's current magic power stat should be around 9. In other words, if I put the 10 points I had into raising my magic power would surpass Kim Suho's. No, that wasn't the best plan. With only a high magic power, I would have to become a magician, but being a magician was exhausting. Not only was it expensive, it also required extreme effort and memorization. I would need to increase both intelligence and perseverance, but invariable stats couldn't be raised even with points. In other words, being a magician was out of the question. What's with the 3 question marks? The next line to catch my attention was the suspicious question marks. Mysterious. Will be unlocked when the main story completes. It was what caught my attention next after synchronization and reset. Unlocked when the main story completes. Perhaps this was the key to going back. If it wasn't, it was the only clue I had. The problem was that I didn't know when the main story would end. If it referred to the storyline before I went on hiatus, I would have to wait 10 years at least. One thought led to another. First, I had to find a way to go back home. To achieve that, I needed power or authority. To achieve power or authority, I needed something called SP. To obtain SP, I needed to get involved in the storyline. To do that, I needed to get stronger or stand out. Looks like it wasn't such a bad choice. A gun met both of these conditions. First was power. A gun didn't require high stats to be useful. Close-ranged weapons like the spear or sword required equal distribution into all stats. While the stamina stat was less important for a bow, the other stats were still necessary. On the other hand, speed, perception, and a bit of magic power were enough to use a gun. In other words, it was easier to meet the minimum strength requirement with a gun. The second was specialness. No hero in this world used a gun. That was more than enough to make me special. So it seems I should continue using the gun, at least until my stats increased and I was mentally ready to fight monsters at close range. With my main weapon decided, I could move on to the next topic. Gift. I can create my gift. A gift held a special meaning for heroes, but it still kept its dictionary meaning, the natural ability or talent for something. But the standard for this ability was high. At the very least, a gift had to be like a psychic ability. Gifts were separated into many categories. The 5 most common were weapon, physical, element, magic, and nature. As for the main character, he had 2 gifts. The gift he currently awakened was the weapon class gift, Sword Saint. It was a super cheaty gift that gave him the world's protection in regards to swords. Simply put, his sword could cut water. Just this single gift was enough to make him the world's greatest hero. That is how important gifts are. It didn't need to be complex. A stronger and more efficient gift was better. I began to type. Gift. Getting stronger every day. Null attribute. Every 24 hours, increase all stats by 0.1. Will this work? Even I found it shameless. When I went on hiatus, Kim Soo-ho's strength stat was at 16. With this gift, I would gain 36.5 in all stats in just 365 days. But since it could be reverted before it's saved, I gave it a try. Novice consideration activated. A gift worth 10,000 SP will be created. 10,000 SP is not enough to create this gift. Its quality decreases. Getting stronger every day. High intermediate rank. Spirit attribute. Static. Cultivation physique. Every 24 hours, increase all stats by 0.0015. Would you like to save the modified result? I immediately canceled.
1.5 in all stats in 1,000 days. In 10,000 days, or 25 years, I would gain 25 in all stats, but I would be too old. Next, I wrote down a gift I thought of before. Gift. Master Sharpshooter. High intermediate rank, null attribute. Can wield long-ranged weapons well. I didn't put much detail into it. From my previous attempt, I realized what this laptop could do. No matter what I wrote, the laptop would modify it appropriately. Novice consideration activated. A gift worth 10,000 SP will be created. 10,000 SP is too much to create this gift. Its quality increases. Master Sharpshooter. High intermediate rank, composite attribute, static. Master Sharpshooter's training method. Unconditional proficiency in all long-ranged weapons. 1,000-mile eyes. Can see farther away in more detail and accurately predict a target's movement path. Increases perception and speed by 3. Bullet time. Once every 24 hours, you can spend 3 minutes in bullet time. Oh, it was quite good. I especially liked that it applied to all long-ranged weapons. With this, I could use a bow if I wanted to. The 1,000-mile eyes seemed self-explanatory, and bullet time probably increased my shooting speed or something similar. It was satisfactory, but there was still something I needed to change. Static. Rather than a static gift which couldn't grow, a gift that could get stronger was better. A phrase has been modified. Master Sharpshooter. Low intermediate rank, spirit attribute. Evolving, grade 10. EXP 0%. Master Sharpshooter's training. Familiarity with all long-ranged weapons. 1,000-mile eyes. Can see far away and somewhat predict a target's movement path. Bullet time. In combat only and once every 24 hours, you can spend 3 seconds in bullet time. Oh, it was quite good. I especially liked that it applied to all long-ranged weapons. With this, I could use a bow if I wanted to. The 1,000-mile eyes seemed self-explanatory, and bullet time probably increased my shooting speed or something similar. It was satisfactory, but there was still something I needed to change. Static. Rather than a static gift which couldn't grow, a gift that could get stronger was better. A phrase has been modified. Master Sharpshooter. Low intermediate rank, spirit attribute, evolving, grade 10. EXP 0%. Master Sharpshooter's training. Familiarity with all long-ranged weapons, 1,000-mile eyes. Can see far away and somewhat predict a target's movement path. Bullet time. In combat only, and once every 24 hours, you can spend 3 seconds in bullet time. It dropped from high intermediate rank to low intermediate rank, and the skills became weaker overall, but in the grand scheme of things, an evolving gift was much better. Not to mention, the main story would continue for at least 7 years. I'm getting sad again. Fuck. With a curse, I shook it off. Point 10. Next, it was time to go back to stats. How should I spend these priceless 10 points? Since invariable stats were invariable, I shouldn't be able to change them. In that case, I had to pick from variable stats. However, I might be able to modify invariable stats. Should I exchange them for SP? Points could be exchanged with SP. Perhaps it was possible to change invariable stats using SP. But before making an irreversible mistake, I decided to give it a test. Thankfully, I had 64 SP, so I tried changing perseverance from 5.010 to 5.500. Using 64 SP, you modified an invariable stat. You do not have enough SP, the value will be adjusted. Perseverance was changed to 5.060. Huh? It worked? My eyes widened. If this worked, what I should do next was obvious. I had to convert my points into SP and invest in invariable stats. The question was which stat to choose. Intelligence, perseverance, luck, charm. To be honest, as a man, charm was extremely enticing. Luck it is. But I knew all too well how important the luck stat was in this world. I remembered a line from my novel. Luck stat doesn't just affect the chances of finding treasures in dungeons. It also affects chances to land a critical strike from attacks and even chances to win a lottery. It was the best stat that applied to all sorts of situations. Life was like that. Luck is what mattered the most.
Without hesitating any longer, I used 10 points to gain 10,000 SP. Using all 10,000 SP, I increased luck to its maximum. What I wanted was luck 10/10. You do not have enough SP, the value will be adjusted. The laptop rejected my ridiculous wish and returned a reasonable compromise. Luck 9.100. 9.1 is the highest I can go, huh? Since 9 is the limit for humans, 9.1 is extremely high. But I didn't hit save and canceled the modification. Though it would take a bit longer, there was a more efficient method. Luck 6.4/10. First, I raised my luck from 6.3 to 6.4 and saved. Next to 6.5, next to 6.6, 6.7, 6.8, and so on. Doing this repeatedly, a mysterious luck applies. Your luck stat further increases by 0.01. A strange luck applies. Your luck stat further increases by 0.05. Luck 9.100/10. With this method, I got my luck stat to reach 9.1 with just 9,000 SP. I had saved 1,000 SP. For reference, the Great Sage of this world had a 9.5 intelligence stat. As 9 was the limit for normal humans, spending the remaining 1,000 SP was unlikely to increase my luck further. In exchange, higher invariable stats have an exponential effect, but now it was better to use the remaining SP elsewhere. Perseverance should be good. In my current situation, training is key, but with my old mindset, I would never be able to handle Koob's training. I didn't even want to do 10 push-ups. Without hesitation, I put the remaining 1,000 SP into Perseverance. I wrote Perseverance 8/10. You do not have enough SP, the value will be adjusted. Perseverance was changed to 6.600. Though I wasn't too satisfied, I hit save. Effect of luck only applies after saving. An incredible luck applies. Your perseverance stat increases from 6.600 to 7.207. Wow. Now I was satisfied. But I didn't feel any different. 4 is the standard for an average person. 7 should be at the level of a talented individual. In any case, I was happy. As I increased my invariable stats whenever I gained SP, I am sure I would become just as cheaty as the main character. Immediately after I had such a blissful thought, an error that could greatly affect the plot has been detected. From now on, invariable stats cannot be modified with SP. What's this? A warning window popped up on the laptop screen, shutting down my plan for the future. Intervention by the world? Though I was displeased, I had no other choice. Nothing would change if I argued with the air. Plus, I was already full of luck, which is what I wanted. Oh, whatever. Without much thought, I closed the laptop and got up with a grin. Now it was time to test the gift I created.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like the video. Have a suggestion? Let me know in the comments.